So in this video, we'll be looking at reproductive strategies. Now let's look at the definition. What exactly are we saying? What exactly are we looking at? Now, reproductive strategies is defined as any structural, functional, or behavioral adaptation used to maximize the chances of survival of the offspring. Now, I know that sounds like quite a bit of a mouthful, but let's just put it in simpler terms. So these structural, functional, and behavioral adaptations could be the way an animal mates, how they lay their eggs, do they build nests, and also how they take care of their babies in order for them to increase the chance of the survival of the offspring. Because if you've got successful reproduction, that means continued existence of the species. And ultimately, that's the plan. Ultimately, every organism is basically just reproducing so you don't lose the species. Now, all reproductive strategies are basically divided into two main types, the R strategists and the K strategists. So some animals fall into the R strategist category, which means they produce many offspring, they lay many eggs or they have many babies, but sadly they have poor parental care or no parental care sometimes, which means because they don't care for their young, they will lose their young very quickly. Many of the offspring will actually die before adulthood. The K strategists, on the other hand, they produce fewer offspring. They lay less eggs, they have less babies. And on top of that, they're also better parents. They put a lot of parental care, a lot of effort into parental care, which means many offspring survive to adulthood. Now, animals like frogs, fish, and turtles, they are R strategists. While most mammals, thinking of humans, dolphins, and apes, they are all K strategists, animals that actually take care of their young really well. Now, one way of remembering the difference between the R strategist and the K strategist is thinking of the R strategist as rotten parents. Both words start with an R. So rotten parents, they have many offspring, there's no parental care, which means many of the offspring don't survive to adulthood. So those would be your rotten parents, like fish and frogs and turtles. The K strategist, yes, I know the word cool starts with a C, but cool parents, the K is just going to help you remember the K strategists are the cool parents that have less offspring, way more parental care, which means most of the offspring is going to survive to adulthood. Like I said, we see in humans and elephants and dolphins. So the two main types of reproductive strategies, the R and the K strategies, can actually be drawn on a graph. We can show how these animals survive in their life, and these graphs are called survivorship curves. Now on this curve, on this graph, we put both the R and the K strategists, but let's just look at the R strategy first. The R strategists, remember, they make many offspring, so many offspring are produced, and they don't have much parental care. So that's why you see on the blue line that represents the R strategists that you start with a very large number of offspring, but most of them die very quickly, and then only a few survive to adulthood. The K strategist here is represented by the red line, and in this case you can see there's fewer offspring born, but they live longer. Most of them actually survive. This is why the K strategist, the line is actually a straight line, and it only drops right at the end after a long period of time, which means fewer offspring are produced. As we said, there is a lot of parental care, which means most of the offspring are actually going to survive all the way into old age, and they only start dying off when they're old. So it's quite important in the test, in the exam, that you'll be expected to be able to draw these two graphs. You don't have to bother with numbers, but you have to label the y-axis number of individuals surviving, and then the lifespan on the x-axis. Once you've labeled the axes, you draw the two curves in, and you're just going to get a mark for the shape of the K or the shape of the R. Now, so far we've just spoken about the R strategist and the K strategist, but these are two basic big groups. And in these two groups, there are every species has differences. So even amongst the R strategists or amongst the K strategists, there's different types of strategies. And here are 8 different strategies that fit under the umbrella of the K or the R that you need to understand, you need to be able to define, and you need to give examples. So let's start with courtship. Now, courtship takes place so that a male can attract a suitable female for reproduction. Now, various animals use various different ways of courting. So on the left here, we see a picture of a peacock. They use a visual display. Now, I'm sure you've seen a peacock and how they fluff up their tail feathers, and the male will do that to attract a suitable female. The male with the prettiest fluffy tail is obviously going to be the one that's got stronger genes, and he's the one that's going to attract the female. Now, another type is sound. Frogs specifically use sound to attract a female. So every species of frog actually has a different sound. Now here's a peacock, and they also sound and they use visual display to attract a female. And then I'm sure you've seen these guys. Look at this male prancing around behind the female. She's pretending she's not even seeing him. And again, he's trying to attract her attention. Pheromone secretion and detection is also a way of courtship. You find this in dogs, you find it in cats, you even find it in moths, various insects, which is a chemical substance that's given off by the male or sometimes by the female that is detected by the opposite sex that'll inform them or alert them that, okay, there's a mate that is able to or willing to mate with you. Now, if you look at these dogs, look at what they are doing. We've got more than one dog here, and they are all going to actually mark the same tree by urinating on it. So the one goes, and then the next one goes, and then the next one goes, and their strategy is that they are leaving their pheromones behind, which is in the urine. And a female will smell that, and the strongest pheromone, the strongest smell really, is going to indicate to her who is the strongest male. Cats do the same. Here's a cat also urinating, and he's marking his territory in this way. So female cats that come around will realize, oh, there's a male around. So besides dogs and cats, here we see some insects like butterflies also secreting pheromones to attract a female. Now, pheromones is, in other words, a chemical way of communication. These guys don't make sounds, so they chemically communicate with one another that they are ready to mate. Look how beautiful and how intricately they plan their courtship. Now remember, the purpose of courtship is that the strongest male is going to attract the female, which ensures that when she mates with him, her offspring will also be strong and they'll be able to survive in the next generation. Scorpions use physical movements as courtship. Now, every species of scorpion will use different pattern or different dance movements. We literally call it a scorpion's mating dance. Notice that the larger is the female and the smaller is the male. So he will carefully maneuver the female into position to mate with her quite carefully, because she will eat him if she doesn't want to mate with him. Now here you can see that the smaller scorpion is the male, the larger is the female. And again, he needs to maneuver her carefully because she's most likely to eat him if she doesn't want to mate with him. He deposits a semen pillar, as you can see marked there with the arrow. And that semen pillar is where the female will move over so that the semen can be inserted into her body so that she can, a fertilization can happen and she can become pregnant. Now, the thing is that he's dashing for his life after this because he might just become food. She will need that extra nutrition shortly after fertilization has happened. If she's not happy with his dance, she won't mate with him and he's just lunch. Now, when we talk about reproductive strategies, the way fertilization occurs is also a strategy. Now, we've already learned that fertilization is the fusion of the male gamete, the sperm, with the female gamete, the ovum, to form a zygote. We learned about that when we learned about human reproduction. But fertilization can actually be either internal or external fertilization. Now, internal fertilization is when the sperm is transported from the male's body into the female's body, and then fertilization occurs inside the female body, like in humans. But on the other hand, external fertilization is when the sperm and the ova are released into the surrounding water, so like for fish and for frogs, and then fertilization will occur outside the animal's body. Now, obviously, internal fertilization is a way better strategy. Here we see frogs mating. The female is the one underneath, and she's got a belly which is a little bit bigger, full of eggs, and the male is on top, and he's taking his front legs, wrapping it around her tummy and squeezing slightly. And as he squeezes, she will liberate her eggs onto twigs or grass or whatever is in the water. He will liberate his sperm over that, and then obviously fertilization will occur in the water. There is no parental care, and that's why they lay thousands of eggs, and most of them will not survive to adulthood, which is why frogs are classified under are strategists. Remember, the rotten parents? So external fertilization isn't the best strategy to have, because the chance that the eggs will be eaten, the chance that the sperm will get lost before fertilization happens is obviously great. So internal fertilization is a way better strategy. Now, when animals form eggs, we also find different eggs. The first type we are looking at is what we call ovipary. When animals are oviparous, it means that they literally lay eggs and the embryo develops inside the egg, like with a bird. And on the right-hand side here we see a frog. Frogs have eggs that have a leather-like structure. So both of these, well, eggs is okay because the baby's protected, but vivipary, on the other hand, when the embryo develops inside and is protected by the mother's uterus and nourished through the placenta, is a much better strategy to have. Because the baby is protected at all times, it doesn't have that threat like an ovipary, like an egg that can be eaten by a predator or that can fall out of a nest. So vivipary is a better plan. But then we also see this, and this is called ovivivipary. An ovivivipary is when you actually see the eggs get produced, okay, but they are kept inside the mother's body for protection. Once the embryos are fully developed, then they will hatch from the eggs and pass out of the mother's body. The eggshells pass out afterwards. Now, we only see this in large snakes. So when you look at it, you're going to think that this snake is giving live birth, while in fact there were actually eggs, but mommy kept them inside her body. And then only after the babies were born, they passed out of the mom's body. then the eggshells come out. So that's why we call it ovivivipary. So it's something between ovi, which is egg laying, and vivi, which is live birth. So between oviparous, viviparous, and ovivivipary, viviparous would obviously be the most successful strategy to have, because the offspring is best nourished and best protected. Now, if we look at the egg itself, the only type of egg that you need to learn about in the IB grade 12 syllabus is the amniotic egg. Now, that would be an egg with a hard shell that protects the little embryo inside and is fed by the yolk. Now, this is the eggs that you have for breakfast. The yellow that you see in your egg, that is called the yolk, and that is literally what the chick feeds on while it's growing. So as the chick gets bigger and bigger, the yolk will get smaller and smaller until the chick inside runs out of yolk. It's eaten up all the yolk. The chick is nice and big and then ready to be born, and there's no more yolk. But when you crack your egg in the morning for breakfast, you see just yolk and hopefully no chick, because fertilization did not occur. This egg is a pretty good design because the hard shell is going to protect the baby. It happens to be porous, so oxygen can diffuse into the egg, CO2 can go out of the egg, and the yolk is the food. So let's look at parental care now. This is the last point. Any behavior that contributes to the offspring's survival, such as building a nest, feeding the offspring, or defending offspring against predators, is considered parental care. And you will be given like source-based questions, given a picture, perhaps some background information, a paragraph on a certain animal, and then you need to just describe what you see and how this benefits the animal. In each of these pictures, we see a different kind of nest or den. And in each case, the parents are responsible for protecting or for feeding the young. Look at the rats, baby rats, how helpless they are. Without the parents' assistance, they will die. So the parents feed them milk because rats are mammals. The little chicks, parents will fly off and feed, come back, regurgitate back half-digested food and give it to the babies. We also have mammals feeding off milk, and then we've got crocodiles. Now, crocodiles are pretty unique in the sense that they are reptiles, and reptiles generally do not have parental care, except for crocs. This crocky will actually wait till her babies hatch, then she will go fetch them from the nest that she's built on the side of a river or a water source, and she will carry the babies in her mouth to the water, and they will hang around her and feed off the little bits of food that she's missed. We also see various species of animals defending their offspring against predators, making sure that the young chicks are safe, like this wildebeest is doing, and then birds that'll actually fly around and flapping around your head to try and keep you away from their nests. Another form of parental care. So when it comes to reproductive strategies, you need to be able to give a definition and a South African example. So as I said before, this is mostly source-based questions. If you know your terms and you understand how to apply them, you will do fine in an assessment about reproductive strategy. All of the best.